Hey guys, welcome to the IronTrap podcast. We are coming to you today with our fancy video format. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. Lots of visual aids and photos. This one's going to be pretty cool. There'll be a lot of old photos and not a lot of B-roll, but a lot of cool photos pulled from the internet. First, I'd like to give Custom Rama a shout out. Great website for vintage hot rods and customs, filled with great photos and information of just about every famous and well-known hot rod out there. Shout out to them. I'm going to use probably 99% of the photos are going to be pulled from their website. So thanks to them. Any business stuff? Probably the big thing is we're done Carlisle. This is the Sunday after Carlisle. So probably the next podcast we'll do like a wrap-up show, talk about how things went, things we found, that kind of stuff, as we have done in the past. We're not doing like full-on Carlisle videos anymore because there's just, the market has become saturated. There's a lot of people doing them, and those videos weren't doing super great for us the last couple of years. So we'll put some clips in the week in the life of for that week, but nothing over the top or a full dedicated video for spring Carlisle. Trying to think what else. Anything you can think of off the top of your head?
Just still going through the Oklahoma stuff. So if you guys were, hopefully by now, we're mostly caught up with all the requests.
Yeah.
If there's something you're looking for, or if, we dropped off in getting back to you, feel free to send us a follow-up email or text message or phone call, and we can try and get through it. Just we were a little overwhelmed with all the, as always, when we do these big estates in the videos, it's kind of by design. Yeah. We get an influx of people that want to purchase things or ask about stuff, and sometimes things fall through the cracks. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping the start of May we'll start going through the big enclosed trailer and try and go through, and there's some stuff that we put in there that it's the only one we have of, but we just didn't have space. So I'm hoping May we'll start tearing through that trailer and getting more stuff sold and going through the smalls, because there's got a lot of requests for small parts that people saw in a video, like a little tiny badge that they saw in the corner of a video. We have no idea where any of that stuff is. I know there's 7 pallets it could possibly be on. I just don't know which one. So
right.
Hopefully after Carlisle, we'll start really digging through that stuff and getting it out there for sale. We have some things coming up this summer too. We have an estate that we're doing in Minnesota. So there'll be an influx of more 35/6 parts coming in end of June-ish, somewhere around there. So if you're looking for some 35/6 stuff, we'll have a bunch of car parts. Right now we have a lot of 35/6 truck, small bit of car, and we'll round it off with more car stuff in June. So
yes,
lots of things coming up this summer. We're still working on many different estates that haven't nailed down quite yet.
There's been a lot of stuff that's been exhausting on our end.
Yeah.
But we can't talk about in videos or publicly, just to try not to jinx ourselves, but also just stuff that's going on that we're waiting to till everything happens. So
Yep.
we may have we're always going to have good stuff going on,
Yeah.
but some of the stuff's more exciting than others. But the Oklahoma one was a good example. We had that in the works for a little while. Couldn't talk about it hardly at all until we were basically ready to leave. So we have more of the same, hopefully,
Well, thankfully, the one in Minnesota we can talk about, we already sent a deposit that partially paid for, so that's guaranteed, pretty nailed down.
Yes.
So we have some other ones that we're working on that are kind of just floating out there in the...
Lots of great stuff going on. So we'll see what happens. So we'll jump into our discussion topic. And that's why I was playing on my phone there, trying to, not super prepared. I was trying to pull up reference photos without digging through all my magazines to at least be able to keep my mind on track. Mm-hmm. So we kind of came up with a neat idea that was like, what if we had what if you can come up with your own list as well?
I'm very interested to see what everyone else would add to this.
So what if you could come up with, if you had unlimited money or you had the opportunity in an alternative world to start your own hot rod custom race car museum, like collection or museum. So there's a lot of these collections or museums around the country. Museum Speedway's museum. You have Three Dog here locally to us, Peterson. There's a lot of these big museums and collections. Starbird has a museum.
Yep.
That has their kind of collection of stuff that they really focus on. That is like hot rod or custom or race car based. And we thought, what if we could start our own museum? And what would be the cars if money was no object, and a lot of these cars we're going to talk about are not for sale,
Yep.
or maybe they don't even know where they're at. But what would be some ones that you would kind of round it out? So my thought process with this, maybe Mike's different, but like I was trying to pick really famous cars, but also like stuff that's a little more unique
Yep.
that would make your museum stand out, so to speak. And some of the stuff I picked might not be what other people would say or think. It was just stuff that would make my idea was if it was unique that somebody would come see some of these cars because they were iconic, but also not ones that have super toured the country and
Yes.
been on display for a long time.
Yeah, I
So-
texted Matt last night. I spent like an hour, and I was like, "This is really hard. I'm
Yeah.
trying not to pick the low hanging." So we did 10, which was made it a little bit more difficult. But we were like, I don't want to just pick like the 10 most famous, like just low hanging fruit. This is super easy.
You're like Hirohata
Yeah,
like
exactly.
all these like the cookie tea, like those are amazing cars. Don't get me wrong, fantastic, super famous cars, top tier. But it was like I was the same way. I'm like, well, I could just pick all those cars, and it would just be like, well, obviously. But
So we're basically starting our own 3-dog because it's like I was trying to think of cars. I'm like, well, that's in 3-dog, and then that's in 3. It's like
Starbird's the same kind of way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these collections turned museums that are like they have really unique stuff.
Yeah.
Another one is Galpin.
Yep.
Galpin has an incredible collection of cars. I don't know if they're officially a museum or not, but like their collection of cars, very specific to what the people that run it and own it are into. So in
Yep.
that collection, there's some 70s stuff that's not some crazy movie car, show car stuff that's not my taste, but it is incredible and makes their collection unique. So that's where we're going with all this. So the idea in the end, we started out with just doing like 4 or 5. And then it spiraled to 8. And then I said, why don't we make it 10? So the idea is we're going to do 2 hot rods, 1 closed car, 1 open car, 2 customs, 1 closed car, 1 open car.
I did that. Mine are both closed car.
Oh, okay.
I didn't follow this rule.
2 race cars. I tried to also do 1 open car, 1 closed car.
I did that.
2 pickups because I started realizing that there should be a pickup category.
And surprisingly, Matt and I compared lists. 10 cars, and only we had one of the same
Crossover,
one
yeah.
crossover. It was pretty. I was like, send me your list. I need to double check. We didn't pick 10 of the
Same things. And then I kind of decided at the end, let's do 2 wild cards. There was
Yeah.
like so many cars that I was like, God, I want that car in the thing, but like it's whatever. So with 2 wild cards, 2 cars that you really would like to have, but maybe you did fit it in or whatever. So we'll start it off. We'll discuss the cars, maybe why we love them. If you guys are following along or listening or whatever or watching, if you want to pull up, I mean, obviously Mike's putting these up on the screen. He'll have reference shots. But if you're interested in learning more about any of these cars, there's a lot of these cars like Mike mentioned, Custom Rama, Custom Chronicles, the Ham, the American Hot Rod Foundation has great write-ups. There's write-ups about most of these cars if you
Yeah.
just Google it.
There's only, I think, 1 or 2 that I picked that are a little bit
obscure.
obscure. Yeah.
So you want to start with your first hot rod?
All right. So my first hot rod, I was trying to pick a 34. When Matt first got all the 34s in Michigan, I kind of went down a rabbit hole of looking at old photos and trying to decide what I wanted to do with the cabriolet that I bought. And one of the cars that stuck out to me was the Dick Morse Bluebird Special. It's a pretty famous East Coast car. I think it's from New England area, I believe.
Massachusetts or
Yeah.
Connecticut, I think.
It's like an old hot rod turned into a drag car. It's still around. It's not what it used to be. It's very different. Still channeled, but it's got it's black
more of a street rod.
with a blown small block and stuff like that. So it'd be a cool car to buy and then turn back to how it was back in the day. 37 pickup grill with a wire mesh or crossbars in it, stainless bars. Had a small block in it back in the day, but super hard channeled, killer look. The blue is a great color.
Yeah.
It's just it's a neat East Coast hot rod that isn't insanely well known, but it's a very, in that especially in the New England area, it's a pretty well-known car.
Yeah.
It was in Cool Cars, Square Roll Bars, which is a really well-known, very popular book. It checked all the right boxes for me. It's just a super, super neat hot rod.
Yeah, it's neat having if you're thinking about having a museum, having unique cars that haven't like toured the country or been, they're well known, but they're not.
They're not in a museum currently also.
Yeah.
Which was hard to pick. Very hard to pick.
Yeah, that one. But I know as far as the New England crowd goes, that's like a legendary car.
Yeah.
So, to have that on display for anybody to see at a museum would be really cool.
The other thing that interests me is it's not how it used to be. So like it'd be cool to find a
Moon. Stay. He's like bummed out. Stop licking your balls, man.
I thought it'd be cool to pick a car that would need to be turned back into its original state. A bunch of these cars have already been found and are restored to its timeline at some point. It may not be the original version, but I thought it'd be cool to pick a car that would have to be redone. I got millions of dollars to spend, man. Might as well do something cool, right?
Unlimited money.
Yeah, unlimited money.
That's right.
Just dreaming here.
Yep. That's a good one. That's not one I would have guessed.
I had to think outside the box. There's, I can't remember. It's a 32 3-window. It popped up on the ham. I can't remember the name of the car. I was trying to find photos of it. It's that insanely hard channeled one where the really tall dude's standing next to and it's like waist high.
Yeah, that car was found, and I think they were redoing it, and I don't know if it ever got done.
A female was redoing it.
Yes. Yeah, I forget the name of the car, but yeah, that
was another one, but I was like, it's not super. It's not something I could like. This car, the way it's built, I could probably drive it, and potentially.
Yeah, but it's a museum. It's not.
I know, but it's like something that'd be cool to own, to sit in and drive. That 32 is like hard channeled, like 9 inches. I'd never be able to get in it.
Oh man. So my first hot rod is, I'm probably starting off with one of my favorite hot rods of all time.
You sent me the list, and I was like, I knew that was going to be on there.
So the Eddie Dye Roadster is pretty much for me one of my favorite hot rods of all time.
Yep.
That car is now restored, but the same deal. I feel like that car hasn't been on display at big events a lot. I know it was at Grand National the one year. I'm sure it did some other events, but like,
what collection's that in?
I don't know. I don't know who owns it. I don't know if it's a big collection or just a private individual, but that car is just so killer. It's so unique. I was going to pull up some photos so I can keep my brain on.
And we've talked about it before. When it was at Grand National, Matt spent like a good chunk of time just standing there staring at it.
Yeah, so like that car is a cool combination of some subtle little body modifications on it and smoothing out, but not like over the top 60s Barris, like, what type of car did this start off as? It's just like really good color, really less is more type car, which I like.
It was also in that time frame where the show cars were emulating a lot of things that were done at the racetrack.
Yes.
So like a full belly pan, like it was that weird time frame where it was like
track nose,
yeah, race car, but also show car. And did he ever race it at the Dry Lakes or on the
probably? Yeah. But I don't know. I apologize. Some of these cars, you geek out on it, and then years later I geek on a different car, so I don't remember everything. I think Ayala brothers did.
We're going to butcher that name here in a couple minutes.
Dang it. I'm terrible with, in my head, it's way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but track nose, it's got a lot of really unique details on it. I love the car club name, the Butchers.
Yeah.
And it's a chrome plated like plaque on the back of it that's just like super, super cool. But that car, and the other thing is, it is ridiculously low.
Very low.
I was very surprised how low that was. Moon.
That's how Moon's allergies are acting up. He's licking every square inch of his paws.
You are terrible. Now you're licking your paw. Great.
Just go back at it. But that's a lot of those cars, because I always forget the blue car. That one.
Cam?
Yeah. They were sitting next to each other at Grand National, and they're both like insanely low slung, low sitting cars.
Track nose
belly pans. and all that stuff. All those cars from back in the day, that little time period, they all sat like as physically low as possible.
Right.
Like a lot of the dry lakes cars were.
Yeah. So I think that car being a famous car, but not as, I guess, worldwide famous, or, it's not as much nowadays a famous car. I think if you're really hardcore into this, but your average older guy that actually lived it isn't going to go, man, Eddie Dye Roadster. So I feel like it's more because of the internet and us obsessing over old magazines and different stuff. We've come to love some of these cars. So that car for me, now in the restored version, the fit and finish is like out of control.
The chrome works amazing.
Amazing. Such a good car. So that car, even though I like Survivor cars, that car as done is just like top notch. So that's my number one. That car's awesome. So that's an easy
I knew it was going to be on the list as soon as I saw it.
So what's your next hot rod?
The next hot rod is the Henderson Roadster. And I obviously everyone knows of that car. It famously raced a horse and all that stuff. But seeing it at Three Dog and actually taking the time to physically look at it, like I've seen tons of photos of it, but never really sat and looked at it in person. Just some of the details on the car. It's an unchanneled 32 Highboy. It's just a neat.
What is it? Mechanical brakes.
Mechanical brakes.
Early style hot rod.
And just us looking at like the banjo wheel it's a Cadillac banjo, but they broke all of the Bakelite off and they chromed the wheel with no Bakelite on it, and that's how it's in the car as run.
And almost every single person, myself included, the first time you see that car, you're gonna look inside and see the steering wheel is like that, and you're like, man, this car's so beautiful. What happened to the steering wheel?
Yeah.
Why didn't they recast the steering wheel? It's like, no, actually, that's how it was. And if you look at the old photos, you can actually see that the car was, the wheel was just, so it had to be not super comfortable because it's like tiny little piece of like 1/8-inch bar stock. You know?
Especially I got big hands. It'd be a really hard. Some of the hot rods I picked was like stuff that I thought would be cool to drive. Like obviously you would never drive a car like that because it's worth so much money. But it's like stuff to be cool to like sit in and drive, or just sit down and just sit in and drive around. It's just
I would drive them.
Yeah, it's a super neat, like you said, mechanical brakes. And just being able to look at it in Three Dog in person, there's just a lot of neat details that I never really noticed before.
Right, and that car is pretty much a perfect snapshot in the early days of hot rodding because it's basically a stock 32 Roadster that they didn't really lower its stock front axle. But, I mean, that car, I think, because of the famous photo of it racing a horse, that's what really makes that car, like, next level. So and a lot of people, if you don't know, if you're not a nerd about old hot rodding history, like for an average person to walk into a museum and see that photo of that car racing a horse blown up, it's like, whoa, what the heck? Like, what's going on here? And then the backstory. So I think that's it. That was on my list, but I'm like, man, I don't know, So again, trying to be different. I didn't pick that one, but that was.
I think that's probably one of my only ones that was like very popular, a very well-known car. I was just
I mean, it's still not like a TV car or anything.
No, but so being able to see it in person at Three Dog kind of really brought it more to the forefront of being able to look at all the details. That's one of the great things about being able to go there once a year when they hold their open house. Just some of these cars, it's neat just to look at all the little details that you missed in looking at the magazine or at a Grand National. You can't get as close to the cars.
Some of the cars, you can't get as close. So yeah, it's a really good one. So this next one, I was trying to think of a closed car that wasn't, I guess I was trying to look for like obscure stuff that wasn't, so I was trying to think of a closed car that was pretty famous because it was in hot rod and whatever, but wasn't like so obvious.
Yeah.
So like, I was like a car I kind of thought of more for race cars, but like Stonewoods, Cook, Willys. Yeah. It's like, that was one I was like, but I'm like, man, that's such an obvious, and it's been like cloned and stuff. So I was kind of like, what's a car that's like, I was trying to think of cars that were like really famous cover shots or famous photos that were in hot rod that's like super iconic. So the one that popped in my head was there's a really famous photo of a guy working on his car in the garage, and the whole back wall is all the tools on pegboard,
Yes.
super organized. It's the Jim Greepsma. I apologize if somebody knows the family and I'm saying this
Yeah,
wrong.
how do you phonetically say that?
Jim Gripsma or Greepsma. So it's a 33.4 coupe that has a 32 grill on it. So I was trying to think of that, like, again, you were talking about the time period. So that's like
Yeah.
a snapshot into like the really golden age of the 50s hot rods.
And his son's with him in the photo too, right?
I think so, yeah. And there's a cover shot of the car. And this car, if you want to learn about it, Pat Ganal, when he was still alive, he was doing a blog for a little while where he was writing these great backstories on photos from his archives or maybe a car that he tracked down. And sometimes he went nerdy and started tracking the car down and whatever. So, like, he has a good write-up on it. So it's on the cover of Hot Rod in December of 56, so if you're pulling out your hot rods. So it's a 3-window coupe. It was on a famous TV show, Life of Riley TV show. It was featured in that. So I think in that article, they kind of were more focused on it being in a TV show than how cool the car is.
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
Is that photo from the TV show, or is that just from...
I think that was just a photo, like... I don't know if that was in that issue or it was a different photo of it. I can't recall. I should have pulled out my shot. But it's like this cool... I'm usually not into yellow cars. It's like a pale yellow.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
With the... I don't know if it had fender... Yeah, it always had the... Well, in that shot, actually, in that issue, it has a Hemi. So the earlier shots of it, it's got a flathead in it. It's flathead powered, and then it evolved like they all do. It got a Hemi in it. I actually probably love it even more as a Hemi car because it kind of is, again, snapshot into that period. But trying to look for the photo of, yeah, so that, come on, where's my phone? Yeah, that photo.
Oh, yeah.
With the all the tools in the background, super organized.
On the pegboard, yeah.
On the pegboard. It's got the bobbed rear fenders, the motorcycle front fenders.
32 grill.
32 grill on a 33.4, which isn't done a lot. Even myself, I've thought about it, but a 33.4 grill is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that on the Arden car, but I'm like, I love a 33 grill so much. I'm keeping
hard chopped and channeled.
White interior, like the full hubcaps on it. So it's just like such a snapshot into the early 50s to mid 50s cars, which is probably some of my favorite era because at that point there was a little bit of everything. The early Dry Lakes types cars were still around and still relevant, I feel like. But then you were getting into the overhead valve and stuff was fit and finish was getting better. But that car is so unique because of having the 32 grill on it, channeled. It's got a little bit of all the best of all the worlds, and it's just like it's so 50s. There's some cars, the Bacon Coupe's another one that was on my list that I almost picked, but I felt like it was the too like cliche, yeah. But that Bacon Coupe is on the cover of Hot Rod with the girl sitting by the swimming pool, another famous shot. Same idea, bobbed rear fenders. I think it has a Hemi also. So all those cars, but like this car to me with that iconic shot with the pegboard in the background, it's just like nobody does that anymore.
No.
That's such a like 50s, 60s like OCD guy.
100%. There's been a bunch of old garages we've gone into that it's like that with all set up or even tracings of where the tool goes.
Yeah, I wish I was that organized, but
it's cool to hear that you would put it back as a Hemi because
I think it's being restored.
I was going to ask, does it exist anymore?
I think maybe even the family has it now or something.
Okay.
Oh yeah, here's
another thing that was really hard with this is I picked a couple cars and then would go to Custom Ramen and said the car like burnt to the ground in a fire.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't pick it. It doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So it's like, this is really hard to pick from.
I think he still had the car or he got it back. I'm looking at Pat's article. I read it a while ago, but I just pulled up for reference or photos. So yeah, like it changed and then it had a 2-bar grill, I think in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
But he had a photo. Pat went and visited Jim and his garage nowadays still had the pegboard.
That's so wild.
With all the tools the same. But I guess the car was at some hot rod shop being redone, but it never, like, I don't know if it ever got done. And Pat was trying to, at this point, I don't know what year this was, he was trying to track the car down, and he was trying to call the body shop, and they just weren't answering the phone. And I don't know, whatever, he never got anywhere with it. I think it kind of was like a dead end all the times he tried looking for it. So I don't know when. I think Pat was doing this kind of around either a little before or during COVID. I think he was doing a lot of these blogs. So I'm going to guess it's in that time frame.
Yeah. It'd be neat to see if it ever resurfaces and gets, restored to how it was.
Yeah, but that car, so that's a good one, mainly because of that iconic photo. Again, I feel like if you have a museum, your last one, having the photo with the horse racing, having the photo of him with his son or the little kid and the tool wall in the back.
Or just recreating the photo. You put a tool wall in the museum and park the car right in front of it.
That would be even better.
I mean, why have a photo when you can just recreate it?
We're doing a museum, unlimited money.
Exactly.
Yeah, just recreate that whole
I'm going to hire a horse to stand next to that.
every Saturday, you can watch this race a horse.
Yeah. I mean, I got FU money, so why not, right?
Yeah, that's
just
true.
Recreate it. People are cringing seeing the Henderson Roadster race next to a horse.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So which one do you want to do next?
Customs?
Customs?
Customs.
So I'm going to do both of mine at the same time because they go hand in hand.
Oh, okay.
So I picked Sam Barris's 49 Merc because it's...
I might even be more obvious than the Henderson.
Yeah.
To me, at least.
I was having a hard time picking a custom because there's that weird transition where they were like super subtle and then they became real wild. And luckily the Sam's Merc didn't really change a whole lot. It kind of stayed as it was, and
that was one of the first.
Well, that goes hand in hand with the second one. I picked Louis Betancourt's 49 Merc, which was done by the, can you say it?
Ayala brothers.
Brothers, right around the same time. There's a discussion of which one was technically the Ayala brothers started first, but Sam finished his first and took it to a show to be displayed first. So I thought it'd be cool for a museum to have the two first chopped 49 Mercs.
Oh, that would be cool.
Right next to each other as displayed. Now, Louis Betancourt's Merc was restyled by Barris Brothers, there was like 4 or 5 different renditions of the car, so it's been changed a bunch, but they were done very similarly. I can't talk. They were done in a very similar fashion. Easier way to say it. Very subtle, not a lot of extra trim. I know Barris's, let me pull the photos up. Barris's Merc has, one line of very simple stainless trim down the side. Obviously chopped a ton.
And let's make note, for anybody that's been watching the videos of me doing my 39 Mercury, we're getting a lot of people that are yelling at me. They take all the trim off, do this, blah, blah, blah. You look at the earlier beginning subtle era, there was still some trim that was left on the cars. So that's a good example of a very famous.
Both cars have skirts, both cars have French headlights, both have different grills. I didn't make a note of which one had which grill. But it would be just a neat snapshot to have both of those cars sitting next to each other in a museum. Just like these were the first two. I mean, like 49 to 51 Mercs. That's like almost the largest custom ever. That everyone turns them into a custom.
I think that probably is the equivalent of a 32 Roadster, or a 32 Ford.
That should be in the dictionary as like custom. It's a picture of a 49 to 51 Merc.
Yep, and I would say, other than the Hirahata Merc.
Yeah, which was the obvious,
that those are probably equally, those cars are equally as important to the history of
100%
of that body style of Mercury.
Yeah.
Just they didn't get as famous as those. But I agree.
A lot of the customs you would go through, they didn't exist anymore. A lot of them got crashed or, because they drove these cars to shows, and I'd find a cool one and be like, doesn't exist. It was totaled in a crash. It's like, this is so hard to pick from.
And some of mine that I picked may not exist, or we don't know if it's the real one, but I feel like if I was just picking stuff to have in a museum, we're going wild here.
Yeah, I had the copper card on for a little bit for a custom and then for a pickup, but I was like, it's almost in that hairy edge of too much. It's a really cool pickup.
But that would make a museum. I mean, if you were trying to do a museum, that would be a car that would draw a lot of people in for sure. So I kind of could see that.
But I thought those two next to each other would just be the coolest shit
100%.
ever. I don't know if they've ever been displayed next to each other anymore.
They both exist still?
Yeah, they both still exist. Barris's is the same way it was. Great green color. It's like a dark, not quite as dark as the green 32 we have, but like
It's probably a GM color because I
Yeah.
think they used there was a GM green that was really common
yeah.
in customs they
Yep.
were
And
using.
it's in a museum in California. I can't remember the name of the
Is
museum.
that the same one that's on like the famous photo on Hop Up where they're in is it Hop Up or Life magazine where it's in the snow?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
I know. That's how I always remember certain cars because of the famous photo in my
Yeah.
head. So that
Yep.
yeah, that car is so good. If I did a 49 to 51 Merc, it would be that more
Yeah.
subtle early style.
And I believe the Louis Betancourt's is in some different rendition. So it'd be one of those cars where you return it to how it was when it was first built by the Ayala brothers. That's probably how you pronounce it.
Ayala brothers.
It just came out real easy. But it'd just be super cool. I was trying to pick an easy one that was like one that's surviving as is, and one you'd have to like totally redo and
Right.
turn back. So which two did you pick?
So, I was trying to being a stickler with myself of what. So my first one's gonna be a convertible. I did one convertible, one closed car for a custom. So, a little backstory. When we talked about Gene a little bit and some of the stuff. So when I got to hang out with Gene a whole bunch, I really was able to kind of form more of an opinion on different stuff because he was word of mouth of like this guy was a dick or this guy didn't really actually do all the stuff he said and blah 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 blah. So one thing I remember one time I was talking to Gene and I was like having dinner or something, I don't remember, and I was like, "What, Gene? Who's your favorite like builder of all time? Like a customizer, hot rodder? Like who did you always think was the best?" And without even any hesitation, he said Valley Custom. Straight away, they were the best. He said their fit and finish, their work, their leading, everything they did, that they nailed it with the proportions. He was like, I always thought that they did the best work of anybody that was, of us doing it back in the day.
I think actually Valley Custom, that one Merc, they did a rendition of it as well.
Yeah, they were huge. And so what happened is him telling me that I had never really researched Valley Custom.
They did a ton of great shit.
Great stuff. So I started going down a rabbit hole many, many years ago because he kind of was like, well, if Gene's saying it's the best, and I feel like Gene, as a person, I really like Gene and I learned a lot from him, and my little bit of time I spent with him formed a lot of my opinions on different stuff. But like in reality, a lot of Gene's cars that he built, like his really famous cars, I think they're wild. They're really cool. They're not my taste.
Yeah.
Much like Bear's stuff. And I actually like some of Gene's early stuff. And I have one of his vehicles on my list here, but it's like not what most people would think. And it's the same way with a lot of the big name builders. So Valley Customs was building very proportional stuff that was, they were modifying it in a way that didn't look like it was being modified, is what I really liked. So,
and they were doing a wide range. They were building race cars, show cars. They were doing everything.
Just fantastic coach builder metal workers, and that's where they were just doing work that was much higher end. And even when you looked in the magazines, when they would do tech articles with Valley Custom, the quality of the work they were doing, like radius and wheel wells, it's like they were doing it properly. They weren't just like letting the fuck out of it. So, so what I picked is the Ralph. Again, I'm going to mess this up. Gillette 40 Ford convertible that is, I believe, sectioned, channeled. It's
yeah, I know which car.
yeah. So they did a lot of channeled stuff and they did a lot of sectioned stuff. And I feel like when they did the sectioned and channel cars, they really nailed the proportions. They wouldn't just section the hell out of a car to section it. They would get all the proportions right, where the mount they would chop it, the mount they would section it, the mount they would channel it, everything would flow. This one, oddly enough, doesn't have skirts. Most of my cars that I build, I like skirts. But for whatever reason, Valley Custom was always able to nail building cars that didn't have skirts. They would radius the rear wheel wells. They would do a great job, and it would just look very natural. So this car is like that. Taking the running boards off. That was not this car, but some of their cars, they would do that, smoothing it out. But I think on this car, what I really like, the nose of the car, when they would section or channel the car. They would raise the front fenders, raise the rear fenders, and then they would pancake the hood, and would take all the heaviness out of the front of a like late 30s to early 40s car, and even into the 50s they would do it some, and it would take all the heaviness out of the hood. So that's one thing I like about like 37, 38, 39 standards. The hood's real like thin and not as heavy. So they did that with a 40, and that's one of the things on a 40s that the hood's real tall. And
especially if you drop the ass end real high, then the nose of the car's sticking way up, and it's also really bulky, and it's kind of like a big nose on a hot girl, just sticking way out there in the front.
Yeah, and their cars, most of their Valley Custom cars were actually sat pretty level. They weren't as much of the speedboat stance. That, again, so like I'm picking this car, but the cars that I put together are not exactly like this. But I really admire these cars. I just rarely ever do I think I could recreate anything that was better than they did, so or as good. So I don't tackle it, but like I really like this car, how they did it. It is restored, and the car, it's black.
It's so great.
You know, with a white top, just done in a really, really unique way. And the Emery brothers did, you know, it's just like.
I feel like a lot of the customs back then, they were doing all three. They were sectioning, they were channeling, they were chopping, and which isn't. It's not. It is done nowadays, but I don't feel like it's done as much as it was back then, because even like you get into the mid 50s, every really good custom was all of the above: channeled, section, chop, or at least two of the above.
So this car, I'm just, because I couldn't remember everything, this car I'm looking at Custom Rama, it was 4-inch sectioned, including the hood sides, the doors, the rear quarter panels. The fenders were raised, they drop axle in the front, 5-inch kick up in the rear, reverse die springs, D-arch front springs. At this point, the owner discovered the front wheels rubbed on the fenders when a turn was made up an incline. So the front fenders were raised 2 inches. The stock taillights have the famous 41 Studebaker taillights turned sideways, which I feel like that's another famous car that kind of set the trends. Carson top, of course. So this car has like all those things, but I think this is one of the better ones that was done, where it's like wild modifications, but everything looks like it should have been that way. And there's actually a quote. When I was researching the car again, there was a quote from Neil Emery that he said that like a really good custom is when all the modifications, I forget the quote, look like the car could have came stock that way. That's the way
I'll put the actual quote right here.
Yeah, it's really good. But it was like, I read that quote and I was like, man, that's like, I've been kind of saying that my whole life with custom cars. So like when you do a car, you do all the modifications, it almost looks like the car should have or could have come that way. And that's, if you look at the 39 Merc I'm doing, that's totally the way I'm doing it. Where like, other than maybe the car sitting pretty low in the rear, a lot of the stuff I'm doing is like, just all looks like it should have been that way. So this car nails it for me on that.
So we'll jump right to your second custom.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did both yours. Yeah. So the have to pick a 3940 Merc. Again, Matranga Merc would be the obvious pick, which I almost picked that because that would just be such a draw to have that actual car. But I actually, much like you did, I went with with Bill Spurgeon's 39 Mercury. It's very subtle. It was one of the first 3940 Mercs that were chopped. Barris was involved in it. And I think it was even done when Barris, before they even really had like a full-on shop. And the way that it's done and the styling on it, a lot of guys now don't do some of that stuff when these cars are chopped. So like they didn't raise the windshield opening, which seems to be kind of the standard nowadays.
100%.
And I think that was kind of started with the Matranga car. But like they didn't do that. It's still, I think, actually.
When was that chopped in? Was it like
this car still has the antenna, the Mercury antenna above, like very stock type setup.
Because I feel like
46.
Oh wow, it's super early.
So the car was, what, 7 years old
Yeah.
at that point. So it's like a...
Because the Matranga was done right around 46 to 48, somewhere in there.
I don't remember, but...
They were
yeah.
all, it's wild.
They were all done within like a year or couple years
Yeah.
of each other. So, and there's another one, I forget the name of it. There's another famous 39 or 40 Merc that there's a famous photo of the two of them sitting together.
That's Zypan, isn't it?
Probably. I don't know.
It was also done by Barris, I think. I think
Yeah.
it's the Zypan Merc.
Yeah, I don't know. My memory's
I'll put it right here. I'll add this cliff note as well.
But this car is one of those cars that I feel like this is one of these snapshots. If you're
Yep.
going to do a mild, customized 3940 Merc, this is one of these cars that you just look at that car and that's it. And everybody's kind of replicating that look with a lot of different customs, even now, where it's like, it's got the skirts on the rear, it's lowered more in the rear than the front, barely, like, front's lowered to where just the white wall's showing. This car has the straight B pillars, just very subtle kind of looking car. And I think this car is probably the best at nailing, like, what the car should have came looking like from the factory, because it's chopped a mild amount. The roof almost flows similar to stock with the way they did it. So, like, I think this car, if they would have built 3940 Mercs that looked like this, you wouldn't have to do. It'd kind of be like a 37 Zephyr. You wouldn't really have to do a lot to make them better. Just lower them a little bit and do some add-ons. So that car, to have that as a snapshot into like one of the first, like your choices.
Well, I feel like the first ones are always not necessarily the best, but the most subtle, because you're the first person to chop it, so you're not taking 9 inches out of the roof to try and one up the next person.
Yes.
You're chopping it, but you're not like trying to be the next radical step.
Well, everybody since the first guy is able to play Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
And so, if I was chopping that car, I would do it that way. And even me doing my Merc, there was doing stuff. I took 1,000 photos of cars I liked and took little things that I didn't like and tried to change it and make it different, but also better. So that's where, that's what everybody did from this one forward, and that's how you get the Matranga Merc, where it's like, well, I don't really like the B pillar.
Let's arch them.
Let's make a a stainless B pillar, stylized B pillar on it, and that's where all that stuff. Let's lower it more than the other guys were lowering, and that's where you get that. So that's my other custom that I would round it out with.
Yeah.
So 2 fat fender cars. I almost picked the panoramic Ford, which is the shoebox.
I also looked at that.
Yeah, and that was one I almost picked, but I thought this car historically was more important, and that's why I picked it.
So for race cars, I picked 2 drag cars. I didn't pick any like Land Speed or Bonneville cars. First one is the Orange Crate, 32 two-door sedan. Super killer, like 60s era drag car. We saw it at Grand National one year. It was in the Suede Palace. It was a Revel like model kit back in the 70s. Very, very famous car. Super killer, funny car. Tilt back. I don't know else how to describe that. Lift off body. Pot fin blown olds. We had to reshoot this because I said small block Chevy like a dummy. I will call myself out. But it's like one of the... You don't see many of those early... like front drive blower cars like exist. You see photos on the internet, but to see a car that still had it, and I believe they were still running it for like nostalgia events into the 80s and 90s still. So it's a super neat snapshot, because like both of the cars I picked are from like the 60s. It was a wild era of drag racing where they were doing like the craziest stuff.
It kind of is like a 50s. I don't know the full history of it, but I feel like that was a car that probably was started in the 50s.
Probably, yeah. But its most famous like rendition is from the 60s.
Yeah,
era.
but it having an olds in it and some of that stuff, I feel like if they would have started that in the 60s, it may not have started with an olds.
With a Hemi.
Yeah. So it probably was a car that has multiple
life but
stories. But
the Podfin, seeing a car with a crank driven.
Oh, here we go. He punched the Olds mill out to 417.63 cubic inch.
Does it say when it was built?
No, I pulled it. If my thing just
That's
pulled
a
it up.
lot of cubic. That's a big cubic inch Olds engine.
But I would imagine with it being on hot rod in the 60, it's
Yeah.
probably built in the 50s or started in the
Yeah.
50s and then got crazier over the years.
Yeah.
But I think that car is the most famous because of it being made into a model kit.
Yeah.
Like when I've gone to the open houses at Three Dog, looking at it and listening to the older guys, I enjoy when I go to these Grand National, some of these events, and you just stand there and listen to the older guys that actually obsessed over that car
Yeah.
as a kid. So you stand next to that, and I don't know how many times I heard, I had to model for this car. Man, this car was like, I can't believe it's here in person.
Yeah.
Like, so the guys here in this area that go to these open houses and see that car, that we were fortunate enough to see it at shows on the West Coast. This car was around in the Pacific Northwest,
Yeah.
in a lot of people on the West Coast have seen it in person because it's been out and about.
Forever,
but like
yeah.
here on the East Coast, nobody's really seen it unless you traveled out there.
Or saw it on videos when they were a kid.
Yeah, yeah. So having that stuff is like, that would be another one where if you had a museum, the draw of having that car and you put the model kit next to it on.
And it's always so cool. Every time you go into Three Dog, the only way to display that car, and we saw it at Grand National, is with the body up in the air, engine on full display,
tube chassis.
Yep.
Yeah, that thing's freaking amazing.
It just checks all the right boxes. And when I was a kid, I grew up around drag racing, and I always remember watching. I never saw this car, but watching that era of drag racing where it was like it wasn't necessarily as much as like you were trying to get traction and go fast. It was a smoke show, like 99%. They were just roasting the tires off, big crazy engines, multiple engines. It was like just this wild kind of free for all where there was kind of rules, but not really. Like modern day drag racing, the rules are very cut and dry, and you can't do wild experimental stuff like they were doing in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that car, I think as far as a wow factor, that would be the car that, even if you were a little kid, if your son sees that car, it's like, whoa, the body's flipped over.
Exactly.
It just looks like it's insane, and it is insane. So I think that car would be for wow factor.
And I had to pick a 32.
Yeah,
you have to check that box off.
I feel like I didn't pick really any wow factors. I went super nerdy deep in the weeds kind of thing with some of these cars. So that's an epic one. My first one, again, going super nerdy. This car is in the Galpin collection, and it's the Bill Likes Edelbrock Special. I even didn't realize till I started researching for this podcast. I never really researched the whole history on that car. It wasn't. I thought it was an actual Edelbrock car, like Vic had built that car.
I thought the same thing as well.
But Bill Likes, I believe, from my recent research, and I apologize if I skew some of this, worked for Vic and was using Edelbrock speed equipment. That's why it says Edelbrock Special on, but it's what everybody knows it as now because of social media is, I believe, for when Trog did the West Coast thing, Dave Schutten, that's involved with Galpin, brought it out and raced it, I believe, or at least brought it out and displayed it. So a lot of people saw that car during that, the social media thing. But we saw that car when they did the Model A display in 2020 or 2019.
I don't remember which one was which.
But they did it at Grand National, and we got to see that car as well. And I feel like that car, if you put, like a Model A hot rod in the dictionary, that car, 28.9 Roadster on top of 32 rails. And what's interesting about that car, really diving into the weeds on it, is that car was actually, most of its life was a 32 Ford. And then they were racing it at the dry lakes in Bonneville and different places and drag race or whatever. They decided to take the 32 Roadster body off and put a 29 Roadster body on it because it was more aerodynamic and was lighter and would go faster.
Yeah.
And that's the version that I love. It's got the corrugated bendy pipes coming out the side for, the headers, and it's black.
Checks all the right boxes.
It's got the shoe polish Edelbrock Special,
still flathead powered.
Yeah. So that car, is just like super cool. And there's like all this background on them switching engines with different cars, and you really get into all the Dry Lakes and Bonneville history with the car. But like that car, as far to me, just looks like an early type bare bones race car, and that's what's kind of neat. It's again, so subtle, so perfect, but like I would love to recreate a car like that. Just if I was going to build a Dry Lakes era type Model A on 32 rails, that's the car I would probably kind of replicate.
To get super nerdy for a museum, you have to find the 32 body exists, correct?
I think I read somewhere that body doesn't look like it did look, but it's a black 32 Roadster that's somewhere. Apparently it exists.
Find that and restore it to how they raced it, and you have both of them sitting next to each other with the story. I mean, if you're doing a museum, you got to get weird and nerdy like that and have all the pieces together.
Yeah, and have the photos of it, whatever. But a lot of the photos I kind of researched, it was like shown as a 32 Roadster, and then they switched the body at some point. But I like the current version as it's in the Galpin collection. Is like, it's so cool. It's just like, I don't know. It's so perfect. It's like that, again, should have come that way. If 29 Roadsters came on what is a 32 frame and looked like that, there's not much you would have to change.
Nope, not at all.
Pretty much it. So that one's my kind of like early race car one.
So my second race car was actually, it's another 60s drag car. It's a Tommy Ivo. I forget the name of the car, but it's his 4-engine dragster. We saw it again at Grand National.
I think I'm gonna have to say your museum would do better for entry fees because you have all these like, mine's like the nerdy one that nobody goes in. Yours is like all these like.
Well, we're friends. We'll co-partner. They'll be attached to each other.
Okay, you can have a separate wing.
Yeah. Again, I remember seeing videos of this car when I was a kid doing like insane burnouts. It's got 4 nail heads. 2 are mounted the normal direction, powering the rear wheels. The other 2 are mounted backwards, powering the front wheels. So it's an all-wheel drive, quotations, 4-engine dragster. And this is the time when they were doing 2, 3, 4-engine dragsters to try and...
Now, was that car actually built to compete, or was it more of an exhibition car?
I'm not sure. I didn't research that far as if they were using it for competition. I'm sure someone can comment below. But it's just that snapshot, again, another snapshot of the crazy... linking 4 engines together to drive a car. It's just the craziest ingenuity to think like, if we link 2 of them together.
That car exists still, right?
Yeah, we saw it at Grand National.
That's what I was going to say. That was it in the Galpin 10?
No, it was in when they did the drag car exhibit.
Oh, okay.
It was in, as soon as you walked in the door, it sat right there in front.
I think I went to the Hot Rod 50th anniversary party they had at Pomona when I worked for Eastwood, and I think it might have been in the Galpin booth.
Oh, okay. Maybe Galpin owns it. I don't know. I didn't look to see who currently owns it because I knew it existed.
Yeah,
from seeing it.
I think that car was in their booth during that like the Hot Rod birthday party thing they did.
It's just just an insane, looking at it Grand National, it's like the craziest. Who would think to link 2 engines together to go faster in drag racing, let alone make 2 power the rear wheels and then 2 mounted backwards power the front wheels. It's just
crazy.
Like feats of engineering to make it all work together.
Imagine the first time they like moved it under its own power. Like, we did it.
Yeah, because Tommy also had another one where they were side by side. Like just the engineering to make 2 engines run together through a transmission out the back. It's just all the craziest. That era of drag racing is my favorite because they were doing the absolute wildest shit with very limited safety gear, very little fire protection, and just being like absolute wild men.
That car. I mean, for wow factor, the Orange Crate and that are pretty much.
I started to pick some front engine dragsters, like the Ed Pink front engine dragster. It's at 3 Dog. I remember seeing videos of that when I was a kid, but I was like, I got to pick something way cooler. And Tommy Ivo's 4-engine nailhead dragster is at the top of the list.
Yeah, that one would be like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So my next one, again, I'm going to different, Mike's doing drag racing. I'm kind of like doing earlier days of that stuff. So Crispin Coupe, that's probably out of all my like cars, this is probably the most obvious one because of Crispin Coupe. hard chopped, just dry lakes Bonneville car. Had lived many lives. That car, I saw it at our Crispin shop when I first started working at Eastwood. We went and visited and went to one of his shop night party things, and I think that car was sitting there. I don't know if it was under restoration or I don't know what the deal was, but I remember that. But like, that car is just,
Again, even in the early days of dry lakes, the ingenuity to like 240 Ford hoods flipped
Yeah.
upside down and welded together to make the nose of the car. It's just
smooth, all smoothed out. It's
insanely low. Like I
Oh
stand
my
next to
God.
that car and I think it's hip height. Like it's just so low, chopped. So the windows are like maybe 2 inches.
This is probably one of the cars. There's probably a handful of them, but this is definitely one of the cars that nowadays everybody's doing the like Bonneville chop
Yeah.
33 fours. It's almost become like the standard to do in the current trends. And this is one of the cars I feel people are looking like, but they're making like street cars and they're chopping it like that, and it's wild. But like, this car's chopped so low, chopped so much.
It's a great color too. That like root beer brown.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
awesome color.
Yeah, and that car having so many different lives, it was then restyled by Barris to be like a TV car at one point. And I somewhere have, I don't know where it is. I have a postcard I found, an original postcard for when they were taking it around the shows.
Oh, really?
Of the Barris version. I found it at swap meet years ago. Might be in the other room. We could show it. But it had all this weird shit done to it. And it was, it was like, had like these weird fender things they put on it and whatever. And it's just, but if I had a museum, I would have that car, the original one, and then I'd have a recreation of the Barris version just to kind of show how these cars had so many lives. And then it was restored back to its current, the most famous version of it. But that is a piece of its history, was the Barris version, and it was, I guess, in TV shows or a movie.
It's like
or
the
something.
Cookie Tea, Jim Street's version. Not as many people are a fan of, but people that were kids that saw the Jim Street version probably prefer it because that's what they remember it as.
I don't know if anybody prefers that version, but
I'm just trying to be nice.
but that is a part of its history. So if you
Yeah.
had a recreation of it, it would show its, like, I didn't put the Cookie Tea because again, it's so obvious. But that would be one that if you had every version, so you had the Lightning Bug,
Yep.
and then it was the Cookie Tea version that's most famous, and
Yep.
then you have the Jim Street version. He did 3 cars, and this is like the progression of a hot rod, of a historic rod.
Didn't Jim Street have a couple versions of it too?
I think it got a little crazier the
each
years
time.
here.
Yeah.
But I think that was repainted by Watson, maybe. And that was the paint job that they actually stripped off of it, which is kind of crazy. But it was a different color.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Crispin Coupe, just one of the most famous dry lakes race cars, I feel like, that, and so many people have replicated or taken inspiration from that car in both race cars and street cars. I know that Lucky, when he did his car,
He'll tell you to your face that he was like, I basically copied it for mine
because he loves it,
Yeah.
and he did a great job nailing the look. It's very similar, but like it's such a perfect look.
Yep.
I mean, that is, when you think of a land speed car, a closed car, that car is pretty much it. That's what I think of as in my head, in the dictionary. That's what I think of. So that car's, that's it. So that's my other race car.
Yeah, it's a good one. Now, pickup trucks. So Matt and I, this is where we picked the same truck.
Oh, you want to do that one first?
Yeah, we'll do that one first. So I was looking for shop trucks. I wanted to find a cool hot rod shop or customizer that had a really, really cool shop truck. And I couldn't get over Gene Winfield's 35 pickup truck. It checks all the boxes, and it's just it's almost a custom, because it's like it's got a bunch of really, really neat stuff done to it.
Yeah, and he
Is that in the Galpin collection?
yes. Yeah, that one is. That one was kind of, I also picked that, and that's what I was talking about. Like, that's my only Winfield, even though I'm, nerd for Winfield, is that one was my pick too, because it's just I think it's the coolest. I'm going on a limb here. Coolest shop truck ever.
Definitely. It has quotations as shop truck, but did he really use it?
Yeah,
He
yeah. He
did?
apparently did. That's what he said. He would actually use it to run around and,
That's so
and
crazy.
use it as a shop truck.
It's like got wild paint. It's got all kinds of custom work done to it. It's like, yeah,
And
it's just my shop truck.
And he would show it at
Yeah.
shows. But I think he did. I mean, at least now again, some of these old timers, their memory or maybe the stories get grander than they were. But at least when I had asked him about it, he made it seem like, oh yeah, I used it all the time to go run around and do that. Now, is that embellished a little bit over the years? Did he maybe use it a little bit? But I don't know. It's hard to say. These guys did just use this stuff, and like a guy like Gene, we're even embarrassing them. Like they actually drove the stuff, but they were the ones that built it. It's like Gene was a painter, so like if he would have like not something happened to the truck, he just would have resprayed it and fixed it. So that truck to me was, I think that's like one of the best shop trucks of all time. One, was displayed at a bunch of shows. There's a bunch of like famous photos of Gene's shop where it's in the background and in the photos. It was found. It was lost for quite a while.
Yes, it was.
And then it was found and then restored, and then eventually Galpin got it, and it's in their collection. And they have a handful of not only Barris cars, but they have a bunch of Winfield cars, famous Winfield cars as well. And like a lot of people would pick the Jade Idol for Gene as like their favorite, and I love it. It's a great car. It's one of his most famous cars, but I think this is actually one of my favorites. I don't know why, but something so cool about it.
I was trying to pick a Gene car just because I feel like that'd be a staple for a museum. Thinking of it as a museum standpoint, I was like, the Jade Idol's very well known, but it was like trying to pick something that wasn't as well. I mean, his shop truck's pretty well known, but like,
yeah, it is.
It's like, I think the truck, I was having a hard time finding trucks. So I was like, that fits in perfectly right there. It takes one of my slots.
Yeah. And that was another one. This is another one that you could easily do some versions of it and show a lineage of that truck, because typical to a lot of the customizers, Gene changed it a bunch over the years, and it was different colors and different schemes.
The gold version is my favorite.
Yeah, and that's probably the most well known, for sure. But that truck, I think, is also was on my list. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what's your second pickup truck?
My second one's kind of a where is it? Everyone knows this truck from looking at Little Books, but probably not many people. If you say the name, they don't know what it is. It is the Ed Ducazos, totally butchered that name, Roadster pickup. So this pickup was on the cover of CarCraft. It was on the cover of CarCraft twice.
Let me see. I don't know the name. Oh, yeah.
So, like I said, no one knows the name, but they know of it. It was on the cover of CarCraft, the first version, first cover photo. It's 3/4 from the rear, and it has a heart embroidered in the bed of the truck. It's a white heart, red truck. I just love it. It's like it's kind of a custom, but at the same time, it checks all the right boxes.
Show rod.
Yeah, show rod. It's super neat car. I'm not a big. It has like a Continental kit on it. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's just a cool show rod roadster pickup. I had to pick an open car because I failed to do that in all the other ones.
Yeah, and roadster pickup, I feel like a lot of people, like I know when I had the roadster pickup on the road, a lot of your average people, like nobody really drives roadster pickups they never got as popular. So like even in the street rod world and the hot rod world, like if you just see street rods driving around and hot rods driving around your town or just in day-to-day life, you never see roadster pickups. So
never.
Like, it'd be cool to have it in a museum because people don't even realize that there was an open cab pickup was a thing, and they were actually, they were a lot of them made. So then I feel like there was a period of time where, much like the neat era of T's to hot rods before the T bucket phase, there was a lot of T rod roadster pickups.
Yes, there was.
I
almost picked Ivo's, his famous.
I thought you were going to.
I was going to, but I picked the drag car, and I felt like it'd be a little too much Ivo heavy. But his roadster pickup, super cool. from looking at this, do you ever notice the back of the cab is upholstered? It's got tuck and roll upholstery because of the 28.9. The back of the cab's totally flat, so it's got the red upholstery up over the top, and then the whole back of the cab is tuck and roll upholstery white.
What year is that Carcraft?
That is 58, and then it's featured twice in the same year.
Wow.
So February of 58 is the famous photo everyone knows, 3/4 shot of the.
Hey.
3/4 shot from the rear, and then October of 58 shows the interior. I'm almost positive it has a chrome tailgate. I'm pretty sure that's chrome. It looks like it's reflecting all the stuff on the.
That's killer.
Yeah.
Chrome tailgate. Yeah. That's like such that late 50s show rods.
Yeah.
He's got all the doodads hanging out behind it. Everything's upholstered and painted and pinstriped.
It's got the cool like race car inspired little Nerf bars in front of the rear tire. It also has some kooky stuff like the dash. I'm not a huge fan of. It has like a 41. I think that's 41 cluster, the real flat skinny one.
Yep.
41 cluster.
More than likely. It's
A little too much pinstriping on the dash. But it's that, again, a snapshot of that era where the show rods were starting to get crazy, but still resemble a car. And not, in a couple years, it got to the point where they were like real weird, crazy show rods. So it's like, I wanted to pick something that was kind of a little snapshot of like the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, that's a really good.
And I wanted to pick something that was little unknown, but really, really killer. I don't know if that car exists. I couldn't find.
I feel like a lot of those show rods just.
It exists, but it's totally different now.
Yeah, it probably wasn't anything like that, or parted out, or who knows what. So that's a good one. Mine is, and I've always admired this truck, but I never really dug deep into it till we started doing preparation for this.
Which we started last night at like 9 p.m.
Yeah. A bunch of them I knew, but I was kind of like, again, trying to think of. So I went on a shop truck kind of like theme for my pickup. So the Chuck Porter, I think it's Porter Body Shop or whatever. Chuck Porter's Body Shop. F1, it's a 49 F1 pickup, but it's heavily customized. And again, I feel like there was an era in hot rod where they were featuring a bunch of the magazines. They were featuring a bunch of like shop truck type stuff where it was like body shops and different guys were, tow cars or tow trucks or push trucks.
Yep.
They were featuring some of them because guys were starting to like, not only do I have my cool race car, but I'm going to make my push truck all customized and cool. And this one's really cool because it's like chopped, channeled, sectioned, but the proportions are really spot on, and they lowered it a bunch. And it actually, like, the proportions are kick-ass for an F1 pickup. Makes it a lot less, like, big and bulky and kind of dorky, and makes it just more sleek and smoothed out. It's got this cool, like, oval-shaped grill opening they made that kind of goes over. I think the stock grill bars, basically. Or no, I'm wrong. No, it's the bars are, like, concave that's in it. But that thing, again, same idea I was saying about the 40, the Gillette convertible. It's got the pancaked hood on it.
Oh yeah, I remember that truck now.
Yeah, so it takes the height out of, the heaviness of the truck is all taken out of it. And of course French headlights and all that stuff. But that truck, I think moved around a bunch or disappeared. I don't know if it ever. Oh, she did. I think the daughter bought it back here. I'm looking at Customer in 2006. Oh yeah, it debuted in. See, I didn't research this that much, but the Munns collection had it, which was just dispersed recently.
I wonder if he sold it or he kept it.
Oh, it's at the NHRA museum.
Okay.
I guess I probably saw it then.
Well, the NHRA museum changes quite often.
Yeah. But this is one of those trucks that or vehicles that it changed a lot over the years. So there's some versions that are not very flattering for the truck, but the overall, all that body work and custom work that was done, that's what we've talked about in a podcast and videos. No matter how many times it's changed, it's always that you can identify that it's that vehicle. This one, mean, there's no other F1 that looks like this. So even though it changed over the years, you could always tell what it was.
I feel like shop trucks were like kind of like the showpiece for the business, and they changed quite often.
Yeah.
Because they were doing different stuff to keep the shop truck like relevant or whatever. Because Winfield did that a bunch with his too.
Yeah, and I think that like a lot of this, it gets sold eventually
Yeah.
to another guy, and then he changes it and shows it, and
Mm-hmm.
you change the paint or you change the wheels or whatever. But that truck, again, oddly enough, that's another pale yellow, and I would almost never build a yellow truck or car. And I picked 2 pale yellow ones. I don't know. Maybe I was just saying something. Maybe I will someday, but I don't know. But that truck, I feel like, is really neat. It's a neat custom trucks. I feel like
I'm surprised you picked an F1 too.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it's an odd one, but I just really like that truck. And there was a period of time where custom trucks were much more a thing in the 50s, like a little subgenre.
Yeah.
It was popular or in vogue for a little minute. So that would be cool. It'd be neat to see more of that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But that F1 trucks, I think, with the right modifications, they're actually really, really
well, I think
cool.
that you'll start seeing more of that because I can't remember the dude's name. He just did that blue one with the red like flames that debuted at the Gathering, right? At the Rock, didn't it debut there?
I think so, yeah. And then it was at Grand National.
But that's blowing up, and
I think it was actually might have been Grand National and Bare Metal.
Oh, okay.
Originally or something, but it was shown in Bare Metal for a minute.
Yeah, so that's like super popular, very popular truck now. So I'm sure more people start. You just need like one car to reignite the flame.
Yeah. That's the probably. I was only picking historic stuff, but that's probably my favorite F1 pickup of all time.
Yeah, it's so nice.
That would be. That would give it a little time. That one will definitely be
historic.
It already is. But
so my 2 wild cards are 2 very different ones. So I went back and picked the land speed car because I figured I didn't have one, and I probably picked the most obvious land speed car. It's the Pearson coupe.
Oh yeah, that was on my list, but I was like going back and forth.
Yeah. I was going back and forth, and I was like, it's probably the most iconic land speed car, and
and the Crispin coupe.
I screenshotted this, and I didn't realize it till you were talking. I was just going back through to refresh my memory. It was did 142 miles an hour at Rosetta Timing Association. It held the record. The coupe was known for a while as the fastest closed car in America. It was known as the coupe that beat the roadsters. And then there's a quote from Alex Azidius that says, "We didn't think coupes were real hot rods," because he was a board member at SCTA at the time. "We were very conservative guys, and these cars didn't fit our pattern at first. We didn't even believe the numbers, of course." So it's like set a crazy high. 142 is really fast, like insanely fast.
Yeah.
So it's just the iconic build that everyone does now. Hard chopped. The Bonneville chop is like a screenshot of the Pearson coupe, basically.
Yeah.
Track nose, just has a really, really cool stance.
Yeah.
So it was one of my wild cards. I figured add a Bonneville car in, and why not pick?
Yeah, I mean that's
or a land speed car. So why not pick one of the most iconic coupes ever?
Yeah, that was on my list. I was that and the Crispin coupe. I was looking at both of them. Like, So for me personally, I picked the Crispin because I like it. You know, the paint and everything else. But that's good. So we can round it out.
Yeah.
If we have on the same grounds, we can have our museums.
2 different buildings. Yeah.
And you can walk and see the other like most iconic.
Yeah.
The 2 most iconic closed car early dry lakes cars.
Yeah. So what was your first wild card?
Calori coupe. So as far as 35.6 hot rods or customs, this one's kind of like a blend. I mean, it's a hot rod because of when it was built and what it is, but the Calori coupe for me is, I don't know if you can make it would be hard pressed to improve upon.
Oh,
that
100%.
car. I mean, there's some little stuff if I was being picky that I wouldn't do, but there's nothing on it that I have a problem with. But like, if anything, I'm just doing it to be different. But like everything on that car is just like so good, and it's just like, and a lot of the trends. I mean, I think most people that chop a 35.6 3-window, they copy that. Like, that's the car you look at and you copy.
And if you'd like to learn more about that car, funny enough, in our last podcast episode, or two ago, we pulled 2 magazines off the shelf from Hot Rod.
Oh, yeah.
And Matt, too, one of them was the cover of Hot Rod in 49.
Yes.
Was the Glory Coupe. So
and that's another reason, because one of the most famous Hot Rod cover shots of all time is the side profile of that car. Yep. And, the layout of the early Hot Rod magazines, the way that is. So you put that photo behind the car. And
same with the Pearson Coupe.
Yeah.
The famous Hot Rod cover as well.
Yep. So I think that car is just so well done and so perfect. And, that's, for me, is I'd love to build a car kind of inspired by that someday. But it's hard to do anything that's better or that different. You ends up kind of looking like a clone of the Glory Coupe. Exactly. That's why I'm always reserved with that. I'm like, I don't know. Would I really do anything that would make it my own that much, or are you just following that guideline so closely?
Trend, yeah.
But yeah, that one in a museum would be key.
So my last wild card is kind of it was on the cover of Hot Rod, but I didn't really do much research on it until we started doing this. It's the Bob. I'm going to butcher this last name because it's a lot of weird letters. So the Bob Urquhart Roadster has a bunch of neat versions, and it's kind of hard to pick, but I wanted to pick like an early 60s. I needed a model. I didn't have a Model T, so I figured a T. Instead of doing the Roadster, the Museum of all 32s or all Model A's, wanted to pick some different things. So I was looking for a cool T hot rod. Obviously, the very obvious choices would have been kind of lame. So I did some research, and this one's kind of neat. Hemi-powered T, has a couple different versions. This one is my favorite, where they had a white convertible top made for it. And the profile, it's channeled, has like the perfect profile. It's pinstriped, Hemi-powered with open headers. It's the early 60s before the T-buckets got like real crazy in late 60s, early 70s, but they were still like really killer hot rods. It's perfect. I don't know what color it was in the later versions, but it's like a plum purple here.
Oh yeah, and I like the pipes on it too.
Yeah. I don't know. It was red at one point. I couldn't find any photos of it with the convertible top, what color it was. But it's the same Hemi in all the different versions. And it's another one of those. Do you build 3 Ts with all the different versions? But it's just, I wanted Hemi-powered T. I figured it was a good candidate.
Yeah, and that's a little more of a nerdy, obscure one. So that would be something that hasn't really been like shown.
Or out there.
It hasn't been out there in the public eye.
And I didn't look to see if that car still exists. It was getting late trying to research it, and I kind of gave up.
So my last wild card is a super, super obvious one, the Isky T. So the Isky T would be like one of the centerpieces for me personally. That car, as far as the man that owns it or owned it, I don't know if he actually sold it. Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
But that car is so iconic, has such a great story to it. All the stories that, if you haven't bought Isky's book, he has a book that he put out, and he has a bunch of stories in it about that car and a lot of folklore about it, but La Cucaracha, because he drove it to Mexico, and that's what they were, because it was like it sat so low. Yep. That was the nickname it was given, and he drove it all over the place, raced it. Again, cover car.
Yep.
Was it the second issue of Hot Rod, maybe? Second or third issue?
It was June.
Oh, was it June?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So one of the first handful.
In the first year,
of Hot Rods. And then, of course, the fact that it's a survivor car.
Hasn't been changed really at all since that cover.
Yeah, pretty much at all. He just owned it, drove it, and then he just put it in his building. And there's lots of stories I've never saw, but there's lots of stories of like you would go in the old, even into like maybe the 90s, you would go into Ed's shop, and it was just like a total hoarder's paradise, and that car was still just sitting in there amongst all the stuff. Like it was just a thing, and it's like one of the most I think, the most famous T, one of the most famous Ts ever.
Again, Matt's 2 wild cards were from a previous podcast episode. Go figure.
Yeah,
If you haven't watched that, we again looked through a bunch of hot rods and talked about that car in pretty in depth.
Yeah, so that car for me, you know, again, being a survivor car is a huge
That checks a giant box.
Yeah, so being able to just stand back and look at a snapshot of a 40s T hot rod with
That was never touched.
Yeah, really rare speed equipment on it. Like just in a million of old photos of that car that's very well documented. So to see that car in the flesh, I first saw that car in the flesh at the NHRA museum, and it was like, I almost felt like I was seeing a celebrity. Like when I saw it, I was like, holy shit! Like this is it.
Yeah,
like, this car, it was there. It's solid. It's it. You know. So that for me, that would be my last wild
definitely.
card.
I was gonna troll everyone and start this off and say I picked 10 versions of the Milner coupe. my museum is all yellow 32 Milner clones.
It's the Milner clone museum. It's every clone. You just bought up all the clones of the Milner car.
Good or bad, it's all just Milner clones.
Oh God, yeah.
But this is really fun to kind of just think about. And we talked about another topic we're going to do at some point.
Similar
vein, but you know, more dreaming of, you know, what hot rods you would recreate.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to be able to be like, because I feel like I'm so grounded that I usually don't. I dream big, but I don't like totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that we don't care if it doesn't exist, if money's not an option, if somebody owns it already. Like, to be able to think that way is kind of fun because you're just like, man, if I could just hand select what are the ones that I would want to make your own unique museum. That's the key here. You're not trying to replicate what the Peterson has on, you know,
or
on
Three
display.
Dog.
Yeah, or Three Dog or any of these other ones. It's
Which
like,
unfortunately we kind of were thinking what Three Dog recreated because he does have like
a
all
bunch
of
those
it.
cars. Yeah, a bunch of the cars.
Not the cars, but his collection is like race cars, hot rods, customs. He does have quite a broad selection of things.
So it's pretty fun to do that. So
definitely.
Hopefully this is just a fun discussion. Like a lot of these, we hope that it maybe inspires you to do a little dreaming, and maybe there's you have your list. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there's always a comment section. If you had a top 10 or even a list of your own, and it doesn't have to be hot rods. You can get into muscle cars or movie cars. If you were going to start your own personal car museum,
we could have made this 50 cars and added so many different genres to add to.
Yeah. So for me, if you had something that was your own personal car collection museum, what would it be? Drop us a comment down below with your list, and we'd love to read it and see what you guys would pick for your own personalized museum. So thank you guys for following along. Appreciate it. If you're listening to this, you can go to the YouTube version and watch it and see the visuals. And if you want to just listen to this, you're watching on YouTube, you can listen to it, and make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music,
all the places.
All those places. Subscribe and give us a comment on YouTube. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.